you say. Bless your heart, need it in the worst way. La la la, la 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 la. I'm a champion, la la la.
Hello, I'm Sharona Justman. I'm the co-founder of the Israel Conference, and today we're delighted to bring you another episode of Conversations, our opportunity to meet with very forward-thinking VCs, entrepreneurs, category creators who are making a huge difference in Israel and in the Israel ecosystem. We are happy to bring insights and bring you to the front row of getting to know movers and shakers. And today we are introducing you to Gil Prashker, country head for Singtel Innov8. It's a fabulous fund. We're going to learn all about it. And welcome, Gil.
Hi, Sharona. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate the platform and looking forward to sharing whatever I can with you.
Terrific. Well, first, we'd like to get to know you. We want to know the man behind the scenes. So how did you come to be in this role, and what were the formative elements in your life that gave you the opportunity to be the country head for Singtel Innov8?
It's a pretty loaded question for a simple, background of, my background. But I grew up between Israel and the U.S. I started off my career in sales and marketing in the enterprise software space, mainly focused on security, system management, working in the U.S. For both Israeli companies and U.S. companies. And at a certain point, I decided to move back to Israel. I kind of fell in love with the startup ecosystem and realized that I needed to, as opposed to just trying to help Israeli companies venture over to the U.S., I wanted to be more focused on the investment side. And I was lucky enough to join a fund called Carmel Ventures, which today is called Viola Ventures. And I was one of the first people hired on when the fund started in 2000. I was there for about 7 years. At that point, I moved on and found a role at a fintech, what today is called a fintech company, which Second Market actually tried to democratize the secondary market for private companies. I was brought on as the head of Israel for Second Market. I joined Singtel Innov8 in 2012 when they decided to open up operations in Israel as what they view, as most people view, as one of the technology hotbeds after the U.S., mostly focused on deep tech. And I joined, and I've been here since. And
so, what is Singtel? Because we know what Deutsche Telecom is. We know what T-Mobile is.
So Singtel is one of the largest small operators that you've never heard of, probably. Singtel, as a anecdote, has about 900 million subscribers in a country with 5 million people. So that kind of leads quickly.
How did that come about?
Singtel is a large multinational, one of the largest multinational operators, focused on Southeast Asia, which started off as the incumbent or the PTT of Singapore, and has expanded outwards and has acquired significant stakes and has become the largest shareholder in many operators in the region. So it's the largest shareholder in Airtel, which is the largest operator in India, the largest operator in Indonesia, which is Telecom, the largest operator in Thailand, which is AIS, the largest operator in the Philippines, which is Globe, and it owns 100% of Optus, which is the number 2 player in Singapore. Additionally, it is one of the largest system integrators in Southeast Asia through its 100% subsidiary, 100% owned subsidiary called NCS, National Computer Services, and provides significant system integration, managed services for Singapore, the government, and other large multinational companies and corporations around Southeast Asia. So in all, Singtel is a pretty large multinational operator conglomerate.
They're a powerhouse in communications worldwide.
They're a powerhouse in communications, and any way you slice it, they're one of the 5 largest operators in the world as a multinational operator.
And what attracted Singtel to 2 things? 1, to create a venture arm, and 2, to do one of their offices in Israel.
Right. So, if we rewind back to 2010, 11, when Singtel came about with the idea of launching a venture fund, it was through a process where it realized that it was in a market that was becoming very, very competitive, with a lot of players coming in place and utilizing their infrastructure as an operator to generate significant value on top of them. And what they were left with and what they viewed as, the very minimal share, and the lion's share was going to the Googles, the Facebook, the LinkedIn's, whoever it may be in the world, and the Amazons. And they thought that innovation was not going to come from within. And one of the ways that they thought that they could actually attract innovation and be a player within early stage companies and see what's happening down the line is through a venture fund that they could both invest in, help, partner, and be in the know of what's the next big thing in technology coming down the line. Initially, it was just the first office that Singtel opened outside of Singapore was the U.S. office. And very, very quickly, they realized another hotbed that was also interesting for Singapore and for Southeast Asia was Israel as a deep tech ecosystem that it wanted to have access to. And then it decided to open up an office in Israel. So today, we are a $350 million fund. Mm-hmm. We also invest more than that because we recycle our capital. So if we have an exit and return, which we've had quite a few in the portfolio, we use that capital to reinvest. Mm-hmm. So our offices our headquarters in Singapore. We have an office in San Francisco, in Israel. We have a satellite office in China. And most of our investments, I'd say, are pretty much a 50-50 split between Singapore and the US and Israel. The majority of capital is deployed in the US and Israel, while in Singapore, or in the region, the investment size is a little bit smaller than it is in the U.S. and Israel.
So that's a remarkable step for a venture fund out of what we'd call strategic to come to Israel. We'll go over that. But would you consider yourself more of a strategic as an investor / acquirer, or a financial?
Okay. So there's two parts. First of all, we're a strategic investor, but we are financially driven. So we take into account the same type of decision-making process that we did at a financial fund. I was previously at a financial fund. My other partners were also at financial funds. So we take the same rigor as investment in as a financial investor, but we at the same time look for an angle that can either create a new product offering, enhance a certain offering that Singtel has, or in some cases reduce cost to justify and strategically fit within our investment mandate. So we view ourselves as strategic, but with a financial rigor. And at the same time, Israel's been a hotbed for many other corporate investors. So I can't really the overlap between corporate funds having offices in the U.S. and Israel is I'm not going to say it's 100%, but it's probably definitely over 50 or 60 or 70% along the Europeans. If it's Intel Capital or Qualcomm or Deutsche Telekom or Telefonica used to have somebody on the ground. They're all, all the corporate funds that have people in the U.S. that are looking at deep tech usually have somebody in Israel or somebody within their corporate development office that is based out of Israel through an R&D group is doing some sort of scouting capability, some sort of scouting function to provide access to what they view cutting edge or emerging technology that they need to be aware of. So given that.
In your capacity in the venture world, is Israel pretty much a heavy hitter in terms of venture money when people want to be multinational? Do they seek out Israel over other countries in Europe occasionally?
So I think there's two parts to that question. One is if you're a deep tech core technology, you're probably definitely looking at Israel as one of your go-to markets. The concentration level of companies physically in Israel is much higher than any place else in Europe.
Mhm.
I'd say that that's one of the reasons why there is quite a few companies. There's a lot of companies that are founded here and are able to grow. Just geographic density is definitely one. I it's definitely I think that everybody. I don't know everybody, but Israel is viewed as a hotbed for technology by other corporates.
There's an
Um,
interesting theory out there that in Europe, if you fail in your venture, you're kaput. But in Israel, if you fail, you dust yourself off and create another one.
I think that's changing. I think that Europe is definitely becoming a little bit more progressive in the idea of how you fail. But by the way, I think in Asia that's still very, very true. The fear of failure is huge, and that's a big difference. The other aspect, at least for Singtel, for Innovate, and for Singapore, for us here, is that not a lot. If you look at global companies or global tech companies, they usually won't go to Asia as a first go to market, definitely not a second or as a third. And if you're a successful US company, you're not going to go to Singapore or Southeast Asia as a second go to market or third go to market. You're first going to deal with your domestic market. It's a big enough market. One of the advantages we have in Israel is that we don't have a domestic market. So from day zero, we're looking at going global. And then the acceptance or the willingness of Israeli companies to go to Southeast Asia earlier is much higher than it is for a leading U.S. company, and that also attracts us as somebody who can help become a bridge or somebody who can help you go to Southeast Asia and go to Asia and be a landing pad to Asia. So that's one extra value that we provide as Innovate is a launch pad to Southeast Asia, and we can provide that in a much more efficient manner. And that's what we're more. I think that we found out that, and I don't have empirical data, but that Israeli companies are more open to going to more receptive for capital and looking at Asian markets than U.S. companies at the same stage.
That's interesting. So what do you look for, Gil, when you're evaluating a company? And what would be a standout feature that's a go, no-go for you?
So, the first thing is I'm looking at the entrepreneurs. I mean, we're relatively investing early stage. We write checks, our average check size is somewhere between, if it's a seed round, we'll do $1 million. We usually will not lead. If it's an A round, we'll do a 3 to 7, which is our sweet spot. In the past, we used to look at later stage rounds, but the increase in capital that has been deployed into venture over the last 10 years has definitely changed the game a little bit. So today, we don't write big enough checks to do late stage, so we pretty much look at earlier stage. So for me, as an earlier stage investor, it's usually the team is number one, a big market that they're going after is number two, being able to understand some sort of technology which I believe is differentiating, or potentially can be something that they can put some weight on and show that they can do that they can show a value that nobody else can, or at least be competitive in that market.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if you look at it, for the most part, most of the companies we've invested in have been in semi-crowded spaces, which can sometimes be viewed as bad. I view it in many cases as good. One of my investment theses is follow entrepreneurs. If you see some really, really strong entrepreneurs going and targeting a certain market or vertical, and you need to take a look and develop an independent thesis of whether you think this has potential. And if it does, it's usually worthwhile to write a check if you think that it has also some strategic value to it. And
what are some standout companies that fell into that thesis that you invested in?
We've been lucky enough to invest in quite a few companies that have been incredibly successful. Some of them have definitely been, I think the focus on is investing in really top quality entrepreneurs who are going after the space. I'd say that we definitely, one of our first investments in Israel in the enterprise security space was a company called Fireglass, which we invested in, which provided a browser isolation. The basic concept is a browser back in 2017 or 16 is probably your most vulnerable attack surface within your organization. And what they did is they basically hardened it and provided a unique capability to ensure that that browser was secure. We thought it was a big market. We thought it was the next generation. In other words, the cycle of technology went through a couple different iterations, and this was the next generation type of secure browser security. We invested relatively earlier. We led the A round, and within a year, the company was acquired by Symantec at the time. So
Wow.
that was definitely, and since then, by the way, that one of the interesting things, and we should maybe have a little bit of side conversation about it, is that within that company, after it was acquired, there have been at least 10 other security startups that have been founded by employees and ex-founders of those companies that have all raised capital from very reputable funds, including Sequoia and Lightspeed and other top funds that exist. So that's also something about the human capital that exists within that company. And it's not just that tier of entrepreneurs, but sometimes it's that second tier of people that are key employees or key technology people. So that, there's we saw a company very early on, Silverfort, which had a unique technology to be able to understand requests to authentication protocols. And we viewed that as a unique technology that on top of that, they could build a full product. Today, they have, a couple of months ago, they raised a Series D round of $116 million, and they're at a significant revenue scale and growing. And a lot of it, and today what they're offering is a complete holistic ability for enterprises to understand all the authentication requests to systems by their employees and machine to machine. So anybody who has credentials within an organization that's asking to access either an application, a service, a server, needs to put in a request through whatever authentication protocols they're using. And they have the ability to track, monitor, and based on behavioral requests or the way that those requests are being put in place, to provide insight on whether that is a legitimate request or illegitimate.
So it's a combination of sort of network as a service plus cybersecurity.
It's a pure enterprise security identity management platform.
Okay.
So it ensures that the credentials are being used by the people that are actually have those credentials, and in many cases, every organization has credentials that were stolen, that were bought by other people that are trying to be exploited within the organization. So credential theft through phishing, spear phishing, dark web, whatever it may be, looking over somebody's shoulder and stealing their credentials. Those are ways to get the credentials, and then you try to access systems remotely, and then you can wreak havoc within the organization. And in some cases, it might just be an employee who forgot his password and he needs help. So sometimes it's, in many cases, you need to be able to differentiate what the use case is, but you need to be able to ensure that your systems are locked down and secure for you to be able to open up your operations, whether you are a retail store, a bank, a law firm, whatever it may be. You need to ensure that those credentials are secured.
So a number of your investments are into enterprise companies, cybersecurity companies. Let's go beyond that and talk about companies that do something different than cyber and enterprise. Give an example of the scope of your investment appetite.
So we look every year. We as a team we meet up and we do a process that we look at what our focus areas are, what fits Singtel, what we think is an emerging market. I'd even say it's somewhat thematic, and in general, and also it's there's also parts of it that we are very considerate to what Singtel's strategic directions are. And right now we're very much our pillars are 5G, enterprise security is a big area for us. Future of work, is what we viewed, has changed through COVID, and that's, I think, one thing that
Right.
we'll discuss is an investment we recently made. We have digital ASEAN, which is not a focus for us here in Israel and the U.S., but it's very much a focus for Singapore.
Okay.
And then we have emerging markets, which would include quantum and a couple other areas that we think can be of growth. So about a couple years ago, we took a look at the market and we said that COVID and the way people are working from home and from remote locations is probably going to change quite a bit the way that people work. And we looked at, how does this affect, how can technology affect it? And, as a non-standard investment we made in Israel, most of our investments in Israel are what we call deep tech. Enterprise security, next generation networks. If you look at the portfolio, I think this is one of the Bytes, which we invested in, is one of the outliers. It is definitely a technology play, but it is not a core technology play. Bytes is a platform that enables frontline workers to access videos that are created by the organization, that are authorized by the organization in order to disseminate information that can make their job more effective, or for regulatory purposes, they need to be able to ensure that somebody actually viewed something. And Bytes is an online platform. We nicknamed it or coin named it during our due diligence process. We call it the TikTok for enterprises. So it's a way to create short video bites of information that mainly is targeted at frontline workers who do not have access to enterprise systems. So it could be somebody who's doing deliveries, it could be a field worker, it could be somebody at a restaurant doing anything. And the interesting part is when you have these kind of products that anybody who needs it kind of buys it, and you find new use cases that you never thought of, whether it's teach the baristas how to make a coffee, or it's a service agent how to configure a Cisco router. These are all things that are done using Bytes platform of content creation and then disseminating using any medium within the organization. It can be a medium of an app, it can be WhatsApp, it can be Microsoft Teams, and it can link back into a knowledge management system of the organization to ensure that person actually understood and took a quiz at the end and passed that quiz of the content that was provided to them.
So needed. It's quick corporate training that replaces the water cooler in terms of sharing of fast ideas, little hints, and ways to get things done within your company.
Right. Exactly. And as someone who is part of a large corporate and has to go through training, in many cases, the training information is very stagnant. It doesn't change from year to year. It's very regulatory oriented. And it, in many cases, doesn't have that platform to be dynamic enough to give me insights on how I can do my job better, regardless of what you do. So the idea is that hopefully at one time, the platform will be able to become fully independent, and people will use it to try to improve other employees' capabilities by sharing of knowledge within their organization. So as opposed to on the way to work, looking at TikTok video reels or Instagram reels, you'll also spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes, kind of looking at reels within Bytes to be able to see what other people are doing to create a level of excellence that you can attain to in your organization.
It's a wonderful knowledge platform and feeder mechanism for education. I'm going to use it myself. As soon as this interview is over, I'm starting my Bytes journey.
And happy to support you, and thank you for the support and looking at the product.
In fact, the future of work, Israel seems to be producing a number of companies along those lines, whereas Israel's very well known for being cybersecurity driven in terms of innovation. The future of work seems to be a very nice companion piece of accessing information, whether it's a company like Monday, which is publicly traded out of Israel, and Bytes, soon to be publicly traded out of Israel.
Well, I know how soon, still has a while to go, but there's Connect Team, which is a company that raises a good. There's a little bit of a hotbed that gets created, and some of it might be from Monday. It takes one big success to create that hotbed and get the juices flowing and the belief that you can actually do that. Fiverr could be a future of work also, which is a very successful company for the gig economy platform.
Mm-hmm.
There's HiBob, which is an HR. I'd say more than future of work in the field. There's a lot of HR tech that came out of Israel.
Yes.
But still, I mean, I'll take you back to a different, path. I think that we definitely punched significantly above our weight in enterprise security.
Absolutely.
And that's
Well,
what it was significant.
speaking of punching, since October 7th, Israel's economy and ecosystem and spirit have changed, and the world's attitude towards Israel is in flux. From the standpoint of investment, acquisition, money, customers, how do you see things right now, and what has been your experience over the past months?
So it's a really loaded question. It's a tough question. But from a very empirical perspective, we are very resilient, and we deliver. The tagline now is we deliver, and the companies are working and becoming productive. So from numbers perspective, Q1 has been a phenomenal quarter. Significant both from new company creation and first investments and in money and in rounds above $100 million. So there's quite a few, and there's quite a few coming in the pipeline in the next quarter. From from my personal experience, over the last 6 months, we had one company which raised $116 million round and actually signed a term sheet. Silverfort signed a term sheet of signed a term sheet on October 5th, which was the Thursday before October 7th. And the round closed, and it actually had received 3 other term sheets. So it had 4 term sheets. I'd say that it was definitely a touch and go, and we didn't know where it was going to go initially, because October 7th, everybody was in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And after a couple weeks, when things started to settle, it was clear that this round was going to get done. And it got done by December 5th. It was announced. It was a $116 million round. It was a growth round, Series D, and there was an oversubscription. So in that sense, we did see deals getting done. On the other hand, I also had a portfolio company in the enterprise security or cybersecurity space. I call it enterprise security because I think most of it is enterprise security management automation, but some people like to call it cyber. Definitely in fashion. But we had a company called Flow Security, which was a DSPM, a data security posture management platform, which is an area where there's a significant amount of competitors early stage in the space. Was approached by a leading security vendor, CrowdStrike, and initiated a M&A process, which closed within 2.5 months. And Flow was acquired on March 26th. In that process, Flow also had 3 term sheets to raise another round from all non-Israeli VCs or U.S. VCs, with obviously with Israeli people, not people, but that have invested in Israel in the past. So in that sense, and also we've also seen Palo Alto acquire 3 companies. We've seen CrowdStrike acquire a couple months beforehand a company called Bionic Stork. So the acquisitions are here, and we're seeing them more common than we did in the past, and that's more of a macro issue. That in the past, I think that with the money flowing, there was less interest of entrepreneurs to sell companies earlier, which was a knock on Israel back 10, 15 years ago, and now it's a legitimate alternative when a tier 1 enterprise security or enterprise software company wants to acquire. There's more receptiveness to the concept. So we've seen quite a few acquisitions in Q1.
Would you say that the international financial markets, the venture capital and acquisition, are fairly bullish on Israel now, even after October 7th?
So I definitely think that they are bullish. I mean, recently Sequoia reopened their office in Israel and announced that they hired, a partner slash consultant to represent them solely in Israel. As a reminder, Sequoia used to have an active Israeli fund up to about 5-6 years ago. They closed it, and through closing the fund, they created 2 additional funds. One's Cybersecurity, the other one's S Squared. Cybersecurity is considered one of the best funds in the world globally ever, and is one of the dominant players in enterprise security or cybersecurity companies. So not only did they come back and reinvest, but they also created 2 additional significant funds that are independent and working in Israel. So you're seeing, we're seeing significant support by all the leading funds, obviously with term sheets and investments continuing. So I don't see a decline in the activity of tier 1 U.S. funds in Israel. And I think that at this point, at least from a tech perspective, I'd add that unfortunately, historically through cycles and through innovation cycles, wars in general have been very good for innovation cycles. So it drives and creates determination, resilience, whatever. I think that one of the attributes that Israel has always had as a startup ecosystem is that people kind of view things have a view in Israel that life is short, or that things can happen and change radically within a split second. So you might as well take control of your life and make something happen, because if you're not going to make it happen, nobody's going to make it happen. So in the big scheme of things, wars are in general a driver to rejuvenation, creation, starting new things, and there's quite a bit of dry capital in the early stage venture funds. There's still significant support from global investors to Israel, and I think that the ecosystem and entrepreneurial spirits and the resilience of the people are going to lead to creation of significant new companies, and that's one of the things that I think is pretty is agreed upon by most people in the venture community in Israel.
You're basically saying there's an indomitable spirit of entrepreneurialism and investment that's forever green in Israel.
And unfortunately, certain events, create a catalyst for those kind of things to happen, and we're there now again. So, and on the other hand, on a macro, economic perspective, we are kind of viewing interest rates are definitely not going to increase over the next. The view is that interest rates are going to decline. There's political issues why in the U.S. the interest rates are pretty stable right now. A lot of them have to do with elections and the inability of the Fed to reduce interest rates during an election year. But the view is that the interest rates are going to decline, which drives investment into early stage companies, which potentially can open up the public markets. And there's a pipeline of significant Israeli companies who are waiting to go public. I have one portfolio company which has been rumored to go public, awaiting to go public, which is Cato Networks. There's also Sneak. There's also Wiz. You got On Backup. You have quite a few Israeli companies that are pretty much have the metrics to be able to go public in a market that becomes a little bit more accepting, and it seems like we're on that path right now. So that's also a driver for the economy.
That sounds like a very positive outlook for the near term. And
yeah, we kind of flipped that. We flipped your question around from the war of October 7th to a positive outlook. So right, but there's still issues that need to be dealt with on a political level.
So last question to you is, you're located in the Tel Aviv area.
Right.
And how would you categorize Tel Aviv in terms of energy and size, density, location? What's your opinion of Tel Aviv?
Yeah, the funny thing is Tel Aviv is relatively a very small city with a large metropolitan area, and from a work-life balance perspective, it's a great city to be in. I recently had a conversation with somebody which I categorized Tel Aviv as the largest, the smallest big city that exists. It has everything from culture to beaches to public, to concerts to nightlife to theaters. So it definitely is vibrant, and it is definitely hopping. So and it's very young. It has a very young demographics. I think that now that we talked about this right now, it just came up to me. One of the drivers is that you walk around, you see a lot of young people, and you see young people both single and with young children. So you have that mix. But it's definitely very, very young, and has to do with the demographics of the state of Israel, which is relatively young.
Gil, thank you very much for the insights into both the hopping city of Tel Aviv and the great prognosis for the Israeli market and for foreign investment into Israeli companies. It gives us a lot of energy. We all want to be part of those deals. So you'll have to come back and tell us the next step as you progress. Gil Prashker, country head for Singtel Innov8, thank you so much for spending time with us and giving us a window into your investment process and into some of the cool companies to look for in the Israeli scene.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, you're
Thanks,
terrific. Shalom.
You. Bye. Be close.
To see more conversations with extraordinary Israeli business entrepreneurs, visit theisraelconference.org.